you hear that will be useful to you. As I was just saying to Shivani earlier, I don't know how lucid I'll be today because I'm fasting and I woke up very early. I've had little sleep, so just bear with me. I'll try not to bore you to death, but if I look like I'm threatening to, just start firing me your questions. I'd be happy for some respite. No issues. Now, Shivani's already introduced me. So, yes, my name is Intan Maizura, editor of NST's weekend publication called Sunday Vibes. Also, the producer and host of our first ever podcast, Sunday Vibes at NST. Um, Now, here's the hard part, possibly giving you an idea into how ancient I am. I've actually, like Shivani said, been in the media industry, actually, to be precise, because I did some calculations earlier, I think almost like 24 years, which means that I've not actually known any other industry other than the media industry. Apart from the fact that I had stints, working in a bakery and Tesco's as a sales assistant when I was a teen. So that's the only exposure I had to, some other profession, beyond the media industry. So let's just say that I've pretty much devoted all my working life being in this profession. I wanted to share something actually, because I had a conversation with a dear friend recently in preparation for this talk. So if I may share, what I said to him, because he was asking me about why I loved my job so much. Now, I likened what I do or what I am in to a marriage. Okay. So after more than 20 years of actually loyally staying put, despite the many temptations outside, I mean, there's been headhunting, there's been other industries which I could have gone into. Um, but I stayed on, and being with the NST or being in this profession is actually akin to a beautiful marriage for me. I mean, I feel that it's rife with challenges, there's frustrations, there are roller coaster moments. But on the flip side, it's actually filled with passion, devotion, commitment, and endless learning and discoveries. Those are the things which I love most, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, so now that's established, now that it's established that I'm in love and I love my job, my profession, so I guess I should just, swiftly dive into the talk. I have to warn you, this is what happens, when you invite someone who spends all their life, all their waking moments, crafting 3,000 word articles on a daily basis. And I have issues writing short, concise articles. So you can imagine when I talk, I'll probably look, I'll go beyond the word count. So just bear with me. I'll keep it tight. I'll try and keep it tight. So where do I start? I guess from the beginning, the headline. All right. So why did I decide to call my talk the accidental journalist? Okay, because I feel it's the most apt description of how I got into this industry. To be honest, I never wanted to be in it in the first place. Okay, so just a bit of a background. Um, Growing up, I was what you might call a true blue jock. I lived and breathed sports, particularly netball and football. I'm a big Tottenham Hotspur fan, in case anybody out there is one. Okay, so my ambition was actually to be a professional netball player. But fortunately for my father in particular, who I'm very close to, I was also a straight A student, and I excelled in English literature, English language, history, and languages like French and German. So I was both a jock and an academic. So that appeased my father. Now, while my father dreamt of a lawyer's life for me, my dream was always to shoot hoops. I couldn't think of anything better than just spending my time out, out in the netball court. A bit of a background again, just rewinding back a bit. I spent my formative years in London from the age of 8 to 22. Now, to cut a long story short, when it was time to pursue a degree, I had my sights on sports science because I thought that was the nearest I could get to sports. My father, meanwhile, he was adamant that I would pursue law. And to his consternation, I didn't. But I did entertain the idea of studying English literature. In fact, I was even called up for an interview to read English at Cambridge University. He was actually quite proud of that. But To his dismay, on the way home on the train from Cambridge to London, I decided, hey, I don't want to spend 4 years of my young life, pursuing a boring English degree, when I could be doing something else. And then I realized, well, you know what? I actually wanted to be in London. And then I started looking for the courses that, that they had in the London universities. And I saw something called media communications. So I'm guessing that would be the equivalent of what, media broadcasting here in Malaysia? Okay, so I signed up for that, and my dad basically refused to speak to me for I think 3 or 4 months along those lines, because back then it was considered a Mickey Mouse course. You know, all these Malaysians who went to England at that time would study science, and they would, study law. Those like really serious, degrees. But I decided to do a Mickey Mouse course, so I said I will do media broadcasting, and that's what I did. And I spent 3 years doing that. My major was script writing, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself because I loved going out for shoots. I loved, directing our shows. Dabbled in a lot of stuff, but it was something that I was so glad I did. But I had no idea what I wanted to do with the degree, to be honest with you. I had no plans. I was one of those, aimless spirit, that I just wanted fate to throw me something, like asking the universe, can you just tell me what I need to do with my degree? But I did have an idea that I thought temporarily I wanted to apply to the BBC. But I knew then, however, the economy was not that great. I had just graduated, and as a fresh grad, I think if I had decided to pursue the BBC, I would have been making coffee or tea for the producers for the longest time. All right. So that's how people did it back in the UK. And I didn't think I signed up for a broadcasting degree just to make coffee for producers, right? It just so happened, and this is really like maybe it's destiny, I have no idea. But I had a call from TV3 back in Malaysia, and at that time TV3 had just been established, so it was just just going up. And I probably had an uncle somewhere who pulled cables, as you would in Malaysia. Otherwise, how do you get in, right? So I think somebody in HR called me up and said, would you consider coming back and possibly utilizing your degree in broadcasting to try out, a position in TV3? And that position was actually for an assistant producer and not a coffee maker. And I was shocked. I was like, it was so um, ironic and quite surreal that somebody who was just a fresh grad who didn't really, didn't have any work experience would be called home to become an assistant producer. But I thought, hey, if they think that I could do this, I said, why not? But the plan was because I had a fellow Malaysian, she's my best friend now. She was also studying broadcasting. And we said that we would go back to Malaysia, go back to TV3, work for a year, tread water for a bit, get some money in, and then we would travel Southeast Asia. So that was the plan. So we were only supposed to work for a year. So as you can imagine, plans never come to fruition. So it was like after a year, it became 2 years, it became 3 years, and before I knew it, it was almost 4 years with TV3. Now, with TV3 as an assistant producer, I was, of course, a broadcast journalist. So my job basically was to research, prepare scripts, go out and create a product, create a program. Um, but before long, it didn't take me long because probably because I had the language, I had mastery of English. So I was promoted to a producer with a documentary department. So I was producing documentaries for TV3, which we would sell to the overseas market. I remember we had a lot of our documentaries were sold to this French station, French TV station. So I was quite proud of that. So I was producing documentaries like war documentaries. I was producing heritage documentaries, and traveling around the world to gather my material. So you can imagine, as a fresh grad, that was like kind of surreal. But I guess it's because I started here in Malaysia and everybody was on a level playing field, and I could just leverage on that. So I don't think I would have been doing that if I had stayed on in London and worked for the BBC. So, okay, I did that for 3.5 years, I think. And then I decided that I was getting tired of devoting my days and nights to the studio. I was literally working 24/7. And at TV3, you're generally like a one-man show. You did everything. So I was scripting, I was directing, I was doing the stand-uppers. I would do everything. I was running around like, like a headless chicken with a crew. Although I enjoyed it because I love traveling, I enjoyed it and I love the camaraderie that was established, with your crew. I decided that I didn't want for it to be forever. And so when a call came from NST, which is really weird because I'm guessing again that I probably have some family members somewhere, that had sort of pulled some cables again, as you would. And yeah, the boss there said, "Would you consider, joining print?" And I said, "Well, you know what?" I said, "I'm not trained in print journalism." So I said, "Do you think I could actually do this?" And he said to me, "Well, can you write in English?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, my major is script writing. So I said, "Is print journalism anything like script writing?" Like being so naive. And he said, "No, you'll learn, you'll learn." So I said, "Okay, I'll give it a go." But the position was for a sub editor, okay, which I had no idea what a sub editor did. But I thought, okay, maybe I'm editing somebody's work. So that didn't sound too difficult. Um, so yeah, I actually went for the test because NST had a test in this big hall. Everybody else who wanted to be a journalist also sat for the test. And I remember distinctly, I absolutely messed up on the first part of the test, or the exam as they called it, because it was all about Malaysia's political scene and everything that was on the news. And what did I know about politicians? What did I know about what was happening in Malaysia? As far as I was concerned, I could tell you the British prime ministers. I could tell you, how to sing, God Save the Queen, but I didn't know anything about the Malaysian scene. But however, I excelled in the second part of the exam, which comprised, it's basically editing other people's work and also compositions. And also, I think I had to craft, there was a topic that was given. I had to craft something out of that. So, and then after I left the exam hall, I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'm just going to dust my rucksack. I'm just going to go traveling, Southeast Asia again, because no way in hell NSC is going to call me back, because I probably failed spectacularly. I was quite proud of that. But anyways, I thought, okay, let's just leave it. But not even within a week, I had a call from HR to say, could you come in? And I'm like, are you sure you've got the right person? Because I was the one that messed up the first half of the paper. And I said, no, your name is Intan Maizura, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I thought, hey, and so I did. I went in, and I remember during the interview, there was a panel of 4. And I'm guessing these are veteran NST editors. And I looked at them and I was thinking, shit, I feel such a fake. But it's okay. They were very kind. So they were asking me what I knew and, what I did and whether I thought I could cut it as a print journalist. And I said, to be honest, I said, I'm not trained in print journalism, but if you're asking me to write something, I probably could. And I said, I have mastery of the English language. If that helps, then that's good. And I think the next thing they asked me was, how much would you be expecting to get your pay? I was aghast. I was like, why are you talking to me about paying? I haven't even stepped foot, right? And I remember saying to them, well, you know what? I'll just be grateful, whatever you want to give me. It was that, I was just like, I'm just grateful to be here. So just give me something. And I didn't even know what was the going rate, to be a journalist back then. So I just left it at that. So whatever I got in my pay packet was good enough. So I started off as a sub editor. Now, I was not cut out to be a sub editor. I was not cut out to be put in a cubicle in the office, staring at the PC, going through other people's work, and repairing nightmare copies. That's not what I had signed up for. I had no idea that in order, okay, this is the DNA of most sub editors that I know. They tend to be quiet. They tend to actually enjoy being by themselves. They're solitary creatures. They will eat their lunch at their table in the office. They don't even go out, and they're quite happy to do that. Okay. And then you get me, who absolutely refuses to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, how long am I going to last, with this in this kind of, scope? And I thought, okay, let's just trudge along. So I did, because I don't like to give up, but I was getting miserable. I was like, these people's work, I can be writing even better. I know that sounds very egoistical, but I just couldn't brain how the copies would be so bad, and I had to repair them. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? I could rewrite the whole thing, but the byline's not mine. And there's no pride in that. So in the end, I think, I don't know how long I gave it, but I actually drafted a resignation letter. I had it in my pocket one Monday morning, and I decided to march into the boss's office to have a heart to heart. That's what I thought it was. So I did, and I went in, and he was very receptive. And I said, "Look, Alan," I said, his name was Alan. I said, "Alan, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm cut out for this job." And I said, "I think I need to tender my resignation." And I saw his expression. He was completely shocked. And he said, "Why would you?" And then I told him why. And then he said, "Before you do anything," he said, "can we just try you out as a journalist on the field?" He said, "We can change, we can take you out of the sub-editor's post, and we'll try you out as a journalist." And I said, "Wow." I said, "Yeah, sure, why not? Now that, you've given me a challenge, I'll take it on." Little did I know that he was going to give me a baptism of fire. He was not just going to give me any little chiku interview, right? He was going to send me overseas, all right, for my first interview. And the interview was with a luxury watch brand CEO who was known for being very difficult. And I thought to myself, at the time I didn't know, but I was just jumping up and down because I was going overseas, for the first time. And so I said, "Yeah, sure, why not? All gung ho, pack my bags off." And I remember on the day of the interview, there were several other journalists. I think there's a couple from the Malay papers, I can't remember, and also the international journalists. And I remember when it was my turn to go in, after having waited, for quite a while, some of the journalists said to me, "Good luck, Intan." And I'm like, why do I need the luck? Why? What's the big deal? Right? I was so naive. And I remember going in, and the CEO was waiting at the other end of the room, his back towards me, and he only turned when his PR told him that I was already seated. And he turned, and he was very officious. And I thought to myself, okay. I didn't think anything. I wasn't nervous. I was just curious. I think it was curious. He sat down, and the first thing he said, he didn't make me feel at home or anything. He just said, "So what do you want to know?" And me, I get really irritated when people are rude. And I thought that was rude. So that got my back up. And immediately, any sense of nerves or fear just evaporated, replaced by this defiance of wanting to put the guy in his place. And, I'll credit that to my dad. My dad's like that. So, anyways, so that's what happened. But because of that, because I actually dusted off that sense of fear, that sense of intimidation and being so apprehensive, it turned out to be a wonderful interview because the guy decided, hey, this girl's not going to buckle, and I actually managed to get him to answer all the questions I had, in my book. Initially, I was only supposed to go in for about 8 minutes. I think I was there for 20. And I was given a lot more time because I think I was able to engage the CEO. Okay. So after that, I thought that, it was job well done. I came back, I crafted the story, did all the transcribing, listened back, put everything together through stuff and crafted everything. And I passed up the story to my boss. I just stood over him and I said, "I need you to see this. Like, this is my first effort. And you need to tell me whether this is where I'm supposed to be." He read it. He read it. He just made me stand. He didn't even offer me a seat. And then he looked up and he said, "Where have you been?" And I'm like, "Does that mean I'm a journalist?" I was like, "Does that mean I'm a journalist?" Because nobody taught me how to write. It was quite instinctive. And I think what it was, I think because I had good content that I was able to craft it, and I didn't actually struggle with it. I mean, I had to understand, the house rules and all that, but beyond that, I didn't find it difficult. And so that was a baptism of fire as a print journalist, and that's how I started. And thereafter, I covered a lot of stuff because back in those days, it was literally you did everything. Like currently Sunday Vibes, we have a lane, we have our beat. We know, we do certain topics but not others. But back then, it was literally you were covering everything. So I could be doing health, I could be doing environment, I could be profiling big CEOs, I could be doing entertainment. So I was doing everything. So I was a jack of all trades, you know, finger in every pie. But over the years, after having gone through that system, I was made a specialist writer. So that's like an equivalent to a senior writer. Um, and I would tackle all the heavier, meatier topics, more investigative, which was what I liked. And so I was able to hone my skills, and I was able to I actually did a lot of self-learning because I find that when you're in Malaysia, you're not really properly trained. I remember we had something like Youthquake and all that, where the young ones would go through some kind of training. But me personally, yeah, I didn't. But because of my nature, I always wanted to be the best at what I did. I would read. I did a lot of reading, and I looked at the way, different ways of writing. I looked at how the journalists or the editors in the Guardian would write their pieces. I would get my dad to bring home newspapers. Back then you didn't really access online. I was just a voracious reader as well, and then I just honed my skills like that. And there were some moments or days when NST would organize training sessions, and I would go. But I think it was more of independent learning that helped me to get to where I am today. Um, and then as the years went by again, being a specialist writer, I was finally, I can't remember how long it was. I think about after like 12 years, 12 years maybe, I was offered the position of an editor to head the weekend desk. But at the time, I rejected it because I thought to myself, what the hell do I know about being an editor? I'm just a small chiku writer, and being an editor, I'm sure there would be so much. I mean, you have to be responsible for a lot more, like being a writer, you are assigned. You go out, you do your assignment, you come back, in your little cubicle, you write up your story, you pass up, somebody else would do all the cleaning up, and then you can go home, go to your bed. You don't have to worry about the next thing. You don't have to plan so far ahead. You don't have to really wonder what you need to put inside your publication. You don't have to do all that. You don't have to have the headache. So when it was offered to me the first time, I said, I don't think I can do that. So I rejected it. And then the offer came again, I think 2 years later. And again, I rejected it because, as far as I was concerned, I was still on this learning curve. There was a lot more that I had to learn. And in addition, I realized that editors have to deal with very, very difficult subordinates, people. Uh, I am a people person, but I cannot do complete PR. I cannot smile at you and I just want to throttle you. I cannot speak nicely to you when you've just like exhausted all my energy. So I thought, maybe I need to work on that part of my skills to be able to manage people. So finally, I think when I find my salary reached the ceiling and I was told that I can no longer just remain where I was, can I please make a decision? And that's when I agreed. So I said, okay, I'll take this on. And so, in a nutshell, I've been with the weekend publication. I've only just known the weekend publication. I've never been, with the news desk. I've always been with features, and I've always handled the Sunday publication or the weekend publication. And then, as you may know, just recently as well, I decided, what, with the COVID and all that, the landscape has changed. We need to evolve. There's no way that you can stay stagnant. You need to evolve. Your skill sets also have to evolve. And I thought, what? How can I make myself relevant? We all know that print numbers have dropped tremendously. All right. So if you still want to have a salary at the end of the month, you need to be doing something else, above and beyond what you're already doing. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? In the US, podcasts are big. In the UK, podcasts are big. And I studied what it would take, to create a podcast. And it wasn't much. You just needed, a space where there's not going to be a lot of noise. You have possibly, gift of the gab, be spontaneous to produce something. And anyway, it would probably, be right up my alley because I just talk nonstop. So, and I love researching and I love talking to people and I love trying things which are new and I like to give NST something that is, that's not the norm. NST being such a dinosaur newspaper, we're 176 years old, would never entertain the idea, of doing something new unless somebody started it. So I thought, you know what, I can't possibly wait for the bosses to say, hey, can we do something? So I said, why not I just start something? And if there's one thing about the New Straits Times is that the bosses are wonderful. They allow you free reign, especially if they trust you. They will give you the green card to just pursue as long as it's reflected back to the NST. And as far as I was concerned, you know what, the NST is my husband. I would be more than happy, to shed good light, on my husband. So I said, yeah, okay, nobody's paying me any extra, nobody's compensating for my energy, but it depends on what you're driven by. Why are you doing this? Right? So I thought, hey, podcasting. So and this is what we've been doing. And as of today, we will be coming out with our 21st episode of the NSC podcast on Sunday. And that was all, one man show, no support from anywhere. Because I initially started the podcast on my own, paying for my own studio, with a bunch of wonderful girlfriends. We decided, let's go and find a studio in Tamantun. Let's just start, and hopefully there'll be people who will start noticing and possibly come in and support us. And I think we were into our fifth or sixth episode before I was able to summon the bosses of Media Prima and NST to actually talk to me. So I remember having a Zoom meeting with them and saying, you know what, I know we're a print publication, but we need to evolve and adapt to the new landscape. Can you give me this opportunity to produce something that's different? I said, I'm happy to put in the hours. I'm happy to put in, the energy and time, but just let me do this. And I said, let me prove it to you that this can be done at no cost to the NST. And ta-da, we proved it. And so now NST has another podcast, which is still in its infancy. It's a product from the sports department. I think they're only into their like seventh episode or maybe fifth. I can't remember. But yeah, so we're slowly getting there. And that, guys, in a nutshell, in a long-winded nutshell, is where I'm coming from. So I guess if you have any questions, if I've not covered anything, please feel free to ask. And I hope I haven't bored you to death with with my sharing. Shivani, take it away.
Thank you so much. On the contrary, it's been very, very inspiring. And there's just so much that we can pick up on there, and
There's
we are
a
opening
lot,
up.
isn't
There's
it?
a lot. There's a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got my, I've got scribblings
Wow,
here
you have things.
and questions that I'd like to ask. But before I do that, if there's time for me to ask questions, I want to open it up to the audience. So it looks like, okay, we have, yes, perfect. You can type your questions in the chat box, or if you want to speak to Intan, just raise your
that would be
virtual
great.
hand. Yeah, raise your virtual hand and unmute and even show your face if you're feeling bold
Oh
enough.
gosh, yeah, please show your face because it's so nice to speak to faces.
Yeah. That's why I kept my video on as well, so that
Yeah,
we
I'm
can
so glad,
engage.
Shivani. Otherwise, I'd be speaking to myself. I probably will go off tangent like worse than this.
No, it was very well contained, I thought. Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this properly. Tamira. Is that correct, Tamira? Okay.
Yeah, it's correct. It's correct.
Okay, do you want to just speak your question out?
Yeah, I have a question. So, like, what advice do you have for people who want to pursue a career in journalism?
Okay, which one? Broadcast journalism or print journalism?
Like, in general. What is your
Okay.
general advice?
My general advice, I think, ultimately, what is the most important and the one that will stand you in good stead is to have the passion. I know it sounds cliche, but you must have the passion because you have to understand that the media industry, especially in this country, is not a high paying job. So you must understand it's not glamorous. So if you're in it for the money, I suggest you probably look towards the corporates because they pay better. So my tip first is passion, and two, to understand that it's a learning process, and never think that you have learned enough or that you know enough. You will be learning every day, every hour, every year for however long that you're in this industry, right? The other thing, of course, it makes a lot of sense. If you're going to be working in an English print publication or English media, you have to have the language. A lot I've noticed, which is unfortunate because I do interview, you know, graduates who come in, for a job with us. I don't know what it is, but I'm just wondering what happened to the standard of English. I'm not sure. So that has to be good, solid, at least solid. And I think it's the fact that not a lot of people or younger people are reading these days. And that's very important for you to have the vocab, for you to be able to have some kind of style when you're writing, right? So passion, having the energy, having English and attitude. I think like nowadays I tell to myself, when I'm gonna hire for attitude. Because in back in the days, I used to think, no, as long as they have an impressive resume, as long as they can speak, amazing English, that's all I need, and I can just, mold them. But no, it's very hard. So if you don't have the right attitude, it's very tough. I've worked with, grads who may not be so amazing. The English is so, but the attitude's fantastic, and they come in to learn, and they become better. So I can speak, like for the interns that we get, they come in only for 3 months, not that strong, but after the 3 months of intensive internship with us, they go away being reasonably good journalists. And for me, again, that's why I say at the end of the day, now, you know what, if I'm going to hire, I'm going to hire for attitude. And you have to also not have an ego, because you might have, your work flung to your face. Nobody's going to pat you on the back and say, this is wonderful. So be prepared to write and rewrite and have things thrown to you, and somebody saying, this is not good enough, please repair. So have some kind of resilience as well, and be humble in your learning, and always expect this to come, because I have also dealt with a lot of people, a lot of writers who have that diva attitude where they think they're untouchable. And I think writers are generally like that. They don't like you to touch their copy, right? But if you're just starting out and you think your copy is going to be flawless, think again. So be prepared for that. And I guess the next thing, get into a relevant degree, I guess. That makes sense, right? It's for you to be able to have an insight into what you're required, to do in this industry. So I hope that answers, because I'm just like touching on, the top, probably the top three that I would be looking for. Yeah. Amira, does that help? Did I get your name right?
Tamara, yeah, that really
Tamira,
helps.
sorry, Tamira.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's fine. It really helps. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Just to piggyback off that question, since you mentioned interns, and we are always looking for places for our students to work through their internships. Are you looking for interns, and also what would the life of an intern look like? If they came to intern with you at NST, what would those 3 months look like?
I'm smiling, I'm smiling. Okay, the life of an intern. All right. First of all, you have to understand, if you were interning with Sunday Vibes, which is my publication, you're going to have a hard life. But after that 3 months, you're going to be a damn good journalist, because I will be imparting everything I know to you, how I learned, how I was mentored. So that's what you're going to get. Life of a journalist under the editor of Sunday Vibes is not easy, because what I will probably get you to do is not only to shadow us It could be to shadow me. It could be to shadow a senior writer to see how the work is done. Eventually, I will also get you to just go out by yourself and get that story. But before you go out, I will definitely make sure that you learn, the interview skills, your research skills, because I definitely realized that after having had so many interns from various higher learning institutions, that what they're learning in the college or university is completely different to real life. It's different to the newsroom. And even they will tell me, they'll say like, Miss Intan, this is not what we learn. And I'm like, well, then this is the reality. This is what you're going to learn. And you're going to go back to your college and start using these skills that you have not learned. So back to your question, it is a hard life, but it also depends where you go. Because if you find yourself with a section where the editor is more intent on you clipping papers and photocopying pages and making their coffee, then for me, that's very unfortunate for you. So I cannot say, for them, it's going to be a very dull life if you ever find yourself in a section where you're literally used as a slave labor. Can I use that? Yeah. So that's not so nice. So you won't learn much from that. You might, if you are an independent person and you are adamant that you want to learn something and you don't mind going to different editors to say, hey, I'm here, I want to learn. Can you give me something to learn? Can I go out and follow your writers? Can I sit with you as you edit? Then you will get something out of it. But that also depends, because whenever we get interns, they're shy, right? So they're not gonna automatically do that. So, but if you're asking for my own section, definitely from day one, you'll be put to work. Because I want you to know that after 3 months of staying with us, you're gonna be really good. And I feel that you should not be waking up in the morning and wasting your time, coming to the NST and not learning anything. And everything is a gradual thing. And if I can impart some knowledge to you, and if you can come back and call me and say, Miss Intan, I really miss my time there, which I do get with our interns, then I feel that that's a job well done. And I feel that I've done it, because as far as I'm concerned, there is no reason for me to keep my skills and my knowledge to myself. The young ones need to take over, and I'm only too happy to just give it to them. But they have to be willing to learn and not break down and run to the toilet if they are apprehended. But I don't do that. I'm generally quite chill. So just to let you know. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like a fascinating and rigorous process. And are you taking applications? I'm asking on behalf of
you
students.
know what? I would love to, but I just don't want to break people's spirit. It takes it. You see, I came from a time when I had really, really hard mentors. You have to understand that time has changed. And the present batch of young journalists are actually getting the soft touch. I learned the hard way. I had stories thrown, that flew over my head. I had shouts. I had to contain, my tears before, you just had to make sure you come out of the room quietly and then you run to the toilet. And then when I see how the young ones are being mentored these days, it's like with kids' gloves. And I don't know what they can learn when they're being taught like that. But then again, you have to take into account that the DNA of the present generation, it's very soft. I don't think they can take it. So, whatever. So I mean, no disrespect, to the millennial, to the Gen whatever. What are they now?
X, is it? X.
Well, yeah, something like that. So yeah, but I guess it takes a special person to really, really want to succeed in this field. And when you do want to succeed in this field, I think you'll take anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my advice.
Well, thanks for the honesty. So any tough ones here, if you're interested, you can contact Intan.
If you're interested to work with the Empress, if you're interested to work with Hitler, come on over.
Okay. All right. So we have a few more questions here in the chat box. Zahara, since you're on video, do you want to speak your question?
Yeah, hello. I was just wondering about how much creative freedom journalists have, because I think in journalism there are certain writing conventions, like even
Sorry,
like
how much?
I'm sorry,
I didn't
how
hear
much
that.
creative freedom journalists have? Because I think there are certain like specific writing conventions you have to follow, like a certain way of writing, and like your editor would probably like set it for you as well. Do you feel like you had a lot of creative freedom like during your career?
Okay, it depends. You see, now, if you're asking about being on the news desk or being on the features desk, because I handle features, and with features, there's a lot more freedom to be creative. All right. But ultimately, because you're writing for a newspaper, you must make sure that you have your facts right. It's a completely different ballgame when you're writing for news and when you're writing for features. Like I said, I have to admit that I was never on the news desk, but I do know how they work. Everything's more concise, everything's more fact driven, everything is like stop running around the mulberry bush, get there, get your thing out there. Whereas if you're writing for features, the creative license is bigger. You can, if you love to tell stories, you're also allowed, those elements. But of course, at the same time, you cannot stray too far away from what the topic is, from what the facts are. As far as how, to what extent will the editor touch your copy? I think that's what you wanted to know. Okay, the editor will touch if you've gone horrendously off tangent, right? Because for some reason you've decided not to, stay focused on your lane, right? The other thing is, of course, if your English and your grammar, whatever, is atrocious, then it will be touched. And number three, no perasan writing. I like to call it perasan writing because a lot of people like to write their stories in the first person. And I always have to say to them that this is not about you. You have to know who is your target audience, who's reading your story. And they don't want to know you. Who are you? Who are you from Adam? So it's not about you, it's about your interviewee. Get your interviewee story out and not so much about I, me, I, me, I, me. Who cares about what you think? But you do have to set up, the whole, because when you write, there has to be, especially with features, you have to have texture, you have to have color, you have to have set the scene. It's almost like if you imagine, watching a film, how empty and devoid of anything if you don't have all those elements. So you have to have that. You have to have your hook. You have to get the readers wanting to read your story from the first sentence, from the first word that you write. So that's where your hook is. And you have to keep them engaged and you have to keep them on your page. So the rhythm and the beat of your story has to be consistent. And the tempo, you have to vary it. Whereas if you read news items, it's pretty flat, right? And most of the time it's in chronological order. Whereas in feature writing, you don't start that way. You may even start from the conclusion and work your way down. So it's an amazing process, and which is why I love feature writing, because I call it a craft, because I don't say I write my stories, I craft my stories. You will start something and you'll start tearing down at certain things that you're not happy about. You'll get rid of this, you start putting things in, and then you add in, and slowly it starts building. It's like you're crafting something that is going to be satisfactory to you, and also going to be something that your readers will read and remember. The moment you put a full stop, the moment you put your conclusion, the reader will go away and remember what your story was about. So that's what you're after when you're writing feature story. So Fatima, I hope that answers your question.
That did, thank you. Because we sort of learn like similar concepts in like creative writing at university, the idea of like being memorable and leaving an impact. So I feel like it's a little similar in that way.
Oh
So
yeah,
thank
definitely. I would definitely say feature writing is very creative. And if you have a treasure trove of words, if you have a big vocab, oh man, it's a fantastic place to be. Forget about the news desk, because you can't use all that, but stay with features.
Yeah, and I have to say, Sunday Vibes is very vibrant. I think it's a fantastic name for it, as a
Thank you,
vibes,
Shivani.
right? As a
Thank you.
vibrant with the pictures and the stories being told in such evocative ways.
Thank you. Thank you, Shivani.
Okay, our next question is from Zafri, and he asks, "What was
Zafri.
the Zafri? Yeah,
Hi, Zafri.
somebody you know in that."
I don't
Um,
know.
okay, Zafri asked, "What was the most challenging moment during your 24 years of work?"
Most challenging. dealing with writers who cannot bear to have their copies touched. That would be my most challenging. I mean, I've had like really nerve-wracking interviews. Um, most actually no, tell a lie, because I actually look forward to every interview I do because I always approach it like it's a first date. So that's the way, that's my strategy. So when you're going to approach it as a first date, you'll be wanting to know so much. So there'll be a lot of questions that'll be pouring forth, right? And I tell myself, do not get intimidated because the other party also wants to know about you. So that's the first date kind of strategy. But I did pee my pants when I had to interview my heroes, um, Ronan Keating and David Cook. Now, compared to all these like amazing CEOs, you know, even I interviewed Siti Hasma, you know, Prime Minister, Hisham, Dato' Hisham, nothing compared to actually having to sit opposite Ronan Keating and interviewing David Cook. And I couldn't even write. I swear my pen was wobbling like, you know, and I was like, no, these are my heroes, these are my idols. So that was the most nerve-wracking. But if you're asking challenging, I think the most challenging part of my job is to deal with people, managing people, dealing with everybody's kind of, you know, quirks and behavior. And if you notice, the one thing that's so prevalent with writers is that they are so proud of their copy that they go ape shit if you have to touch it. But you know what? I wouldn't touch it if it was solid and good. And no editor should want to touch something that is solid. So if I were to touch it, it's because there are things to repair. I do not touch your style because that's yours, but I will help you develop it. So Zafri, in answer to your question, I generally don't get frazzled with my anything that has to do with my profession, but I do have to control myself when I feel like I want to throttle people who don't seem to understand that they're not there yet. So that would be the hardest part of my job. I'm sorry. I hope that's good enough.
Once again, Intan, love your honesty.
I'm sorry, you know, hey.
No, it's raw. I love it. We have one more question from your namesake,
Okay.
Intan
Oh,
Nazira.
okay.
She says, Miss Intan, what's your top 2 interviews that you have done in the past? Do you have a favorite one?
Do I have a favorite interview? Okay. I recently submitted a few stories for MPI, which is the Malaysian Press Institute Awards. So I'm assuming those would be considered my favorite interviews. Okay, there's a difference between favorite interviews and best story as far as I'm concerned. It could be a favorite interview because I'm interviewing someone that I've always wanted to meet. So my favorite interview could be David Cook. It could be, you know, Ronan Keating. However, whether the story actually came out as something that would be considered award worthy or my favorite story, maybe not, because with these people, you don't get a lot of time to play. So I think recently I interviewed Tun Dr. Siti Hasma. So not only was that a privilege, it was also like a dream. It was quite surreal because I didn't think she would invite me into her house. Because initially it was offered up as an events thing. I would go to a press conference. I would probably get, you know, maybe 5-10 minutes with her in the corner. And I would have to do the rest by, you know, researching stuff and just inputting information. But what I said was, I said to the organizers, you know what, if you want me to interview Tun, I want to be able to sit with her for longer than 10 minutes. I said, can you see whether she would invite me out for lunch at her house? And I just threw it at that and I thought nothing about it. And I said, you know, the audacity of this editor asking to meet with Tun Dr. Siti Hasma in her house because she refused to do an interview, you know, a 10-minute interview, because I thought there's no way I can do a good job for Sunday Vibes if I were given such short space of time. And it would be disrespectful to her as well, you know, because she's such an icon. And within a day, within 24 hours, the call came and said, Miss Intan, would you like to come for lunch at Tun's house? You know, and you can take as long as you want. So I was like, hey, you know, and the good thing is, and I think things like this happen to us because of the good job that we've done with Sunday Vibes. You see, because we get a lot of people asking to be featured in Sunday Vibes and to be given the Sunday Vibes treatment. They specifically ask for you to interview them, not because of anything, but because they know that we will do a good job. And which is why we would never do things like, Zoom interviews. We would never do things like, if you're going to give me 8 minutes because you think, you know, that person doesn't need you and you need them more, then I'm not going to go there. So what I will normally do when I am pitched a story, I will say, would you be able to give me a face-to-face interview where there's adequate time for me to flesh out, what I need to flesh out? And I said, in return, I promise you, you will get a good story. So that's the deal we broker with everybody who come to us, and it's worked out. It's worked out fine, and I think that's why Sunday Vibes. I mean, I'm not saying it because it's mine, but I'm saying it because it's true. We do offer quality stories, I think. So, and I believe so as well. So I hope, Intan Maizura, that answers your question.
Yes, she says, thank you, Miss Intan. We've come up to 5 p.m. now, so we're at the end of our wonderfully rich session. Thank you so much, Intan,
Thank you for being so kind.
It's just been really insightful. You've been very generous with your answers, and I think I'll speak I'll speak for myself. I've definitely learned a lot about what you do and what it takes also, what it takes in terms of your character to be a journalist and to survive in the industry.
You have to be a Libran to be in this industry.
You go. All Librans, then yes, let's hope for you yet. Sagittarius also, I think. I'm a Sagittarius. Adventurous.
Well, just don't get too intense with me, then you'll be good.
So since what's coming out on Sunday, can we get a sneak preview of what's coming out this Sunday for Sunday Vibes?
Sunday Vibes. Oh, okay. Well, our cover story is of this entrepreneur who has, I don't know whether anyone's heard of Fat Sunday. It's a brand of premium desserts and sweets. Now, I actually like this story not because I'm trying to promote the brand. It's because of who the person is. For me, it showcases, it highlights the resilience that this young woman has. She came from a broken family, hard life, but she made it through all the way on her own, based just on passion, on resilience, on commitment, on belief. And I kind of like those kind of stories because I feel that when we put out such stories, our readers go away feeling inspired. I mean, especially in this kind of landscape that we're living in, it's so easy to be demoralized. It's so easy to feel sorry for yourself. But you know what? People are doing things out there, and you really have to inspire yourself. You have to push yourself to get to where you want to be. And there's no point in saying, "Woe me," when we have interviewed people who can't walk, who have terminal illness, people who don't have eyesight. And yet, when I'm writing the story, I feel so inspired, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, hello, first world problem you're experiencing. You can't have coffee, and you're saying that's the end of life. And these people are just, going on with life and inspiring people like you and me with their stories. So that's why I like to carry such stories. These are Malaysian stories. They're not celebrities. These are Malaysian stories to help inspire you. Because if you just put your ears to the ground, if you look around you, Malaysia is a treasure trove of stories. Everyone has a story to tell, but you have to have the patience and the interest and the curiosity to want to drag it out of them. It takes time. It's a lot more energy required as opposed to going to press conferences and, interviewing celebrities. No disrespect to celebrities, but I think we need to tell the Malaysian story. And Malaysians are a wonderful bunch of people, and start looking out for these kind of stories. And that's what I hope to do with Sunday Vibes. And I hope we can continue on, on this kind of journey for as long as I'm in charge. After this, the NSC might just kick me out. But yeah. So that's it.
Well, thank you so much, Intan, for bringing your vibes here into the session today.
You're welcome.
And yeah, so thank you everyone for attending as well, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Take care, everyone. There's a comment from Sue. Sue says, Miss
Oh.
Intan, your charisma is really wonderful to witness. Thank you for honestly sharing your experience as a journalist. I echo that, actually. I echo that. We have Kay. Kay has, I'm not sure if Kay is a he, she, or them. So,
hello, Kay.
Is it Kay a friend? Kay, you can unmute if you like. Or is that an accidental hand raise?
Damn, I was looking forward to Kay.
Yeah. Well, maybe Kay will speak. We can
Kay,
wait.
have I scared you off?
And Sabrina says, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabrina, for listening.
Okay. I don't know if Kay will be speaking or not.
You can drop me a line.
Yeah, you can contact
Guys,
Intern.
whoever's online here right now, feel free to just drop me a line anytime you want. My email address is intanm@nst.com.my. If you have wonderful stories, or if you have, if you just want to chill and find out more about this profession, or if you're planning on buying me coffee, I'd be game for that. Or, if you can support us with our podcast or with our publication, I really, really, truly value your support, especially with our podcast, I think, because I think it would probably be up your alley. It's a bit more young and upbeat, and the topics are quite relevant. We do a lot of relationship topics. We do a lot of quirky, fun topics. So if you can support us there, that would be great. And we have an Instagram page for Sunday Vibes podcast as well. So you just need to, type in Sunday Vibes. And please support the NST because we really are the best.